I'm currently in Montenegro for the European Team Chess Championship. I am representing the national team of the Netherlands in the women's section, and I'm super excited to participate in this very prestigious event. It's been a long time since my previous participation in this event. It's been 6 years now, so it's quite an honor to be part of the team, and I can't wait to show you guys my games because today is round one. The tournament is just getting started and I'm now getting ready for my game. We are playing against Croatia. The pairings are out. I am playing. So yeah, wish me luck and I hope to come back with a good result. All right, my makeup is on. I'm ready for the game. But before I go, let me show you how the view from my room looks like. It looks absolutely stunning. By the way, we had to go through those mountains on the bus trip. That was not fun. Well, there we are, guys. So I just finished my game. By the way, apologies for a little bit of a scuffed layout and also the background noise maybe. I have my window open. It is super hot in my room, so I could really use the window being open right now. But without further ado, let's talk about my game. So I went into this round knowing that I am going to face the Najdorf. And me and my coach, we talked about what to do and we came up with an idea. Well, he did. And this just happened on the board. So let me show you what happened. So it started with e4, c5, knight of 3 d6. This is the classic Najdorf. There you go. And here I decided to play bishop e2. So this is a very solid approach. Usually there is bishop e3 play. There's many other moves that white can play here, but bishop e2 is a more solid approach. e5 is the main move, knight b3, bishop e7, short castle, bishop e3, simply developing moves, and this was all prepared, but this is also pretty theoretical still, so yeah, it's nothing too crazy. Bishop e6, and here I played the move bishop f3. This move is quite unusual, to be honest with you. It looks very weird because you're blocking the pawn on f2. You are just staring at this pawn over here. What is the point? So the point is that you're trying to stop any sort of d5 pawn push by black. And that is very inconvenient for black because black really wants to play this pawn move. And if they're not able to, this just remains a weakness and it's really hard for black to play around this. Also, in any case, there will be, if there's going to be f5 play, you can simply take it and this bishop will open up over here. So that can also cause some problems. So that was the idea behind this move, and this is what we prepared basically. And my coach, so we have one coach as we are in a team. We have one coach for all four of us. And our coach showed me this opening and he showed me one game which happened in the Dutch league apparently, and it went exactly the same way until this point, but also a few moves more. Let me show you. So knight b7, a4, simply stopping any sort of b5. Maybe my opponent could have played b5 over here, but if b5 happens too soon, you can always counter it with a4, then b4 and knight d5, and you'll continue from here. This is perfectly fine for white and but basically not the best continuation. Knight bd7 is just fine. a4 preventing b5 as I said. And after knight b6, I played knight e2. This was still part of a preparation. So we were still following this one game that my coach showed me. And yeah, this is basically sort of preventing knight c4. Well, in case knight c4, you can just capture it and you're perfectly fine. We're not afraid of any sort of d5 because I can either play a5 or just capture on b6 and we're perfectly fine. So this is why my opponent played rook c8, simply developing the rook, and now a5. Knight c4, takes, and well, this was the moment that I was, well, sort of out of book. Not really, because I knew the ideas more or less, but the game that we were following was played with rook takes c4. So after rook takes c4, there's knight a4, and the game goes on. Let me show you though, because it's really interesting, actually. Because knight a4 looks really strange, right? Because You are not defending the pawn anymore on a5. On e4 is also hanging. You're allowing d5 perhaps, but funnily enough, none of these moves actually work. And if you can just play a move like knight a4, allowing all of these kind of scary looking moves, but you're able to play because none of these moves actually work, then you're doing amazing, right? So I'm able to afford such a move and then focus on, trying to create some space on the queen side and focus on that. So the reason why none of these moves work, let me show you. So after queen takes a5, you run into knight b6 and yeah, you drop material. You can still fight, of course, it's not completely losing, but yeah, why would you do this to yourself, right? So then we also have knight takes e4. The reason why knight takes e4 is not great, well, you either have b3, but knight b6 seems to be more accurate, and you're simply attacking the rook. So if the rook goes here to keep defending the knight on e4, you just play c3, and the rook cannot defend the knight on e4 anymore. So that's why knight takes e4 is simply bad. And then we have d5. If d5 is played, you can just take that. And there are all sorts of knight b6 ideas. So let's say bishop takes here. There's knight b6 immediately already. And this looks already quite unpleasant. And apparently, so I was thinking of queen takes f3 here. But apparently you can just take. And then on the next move, let's say after takes, you just take the rook. And you're up material. It's not just lost just yet. But of course, this is pretty bad for black. So to go back to the position, so this is why knight a4 is very strong here. And this was what I was, not expecting, but this is what I had prepared. And I was ready to go for this. And this was exactly how that one game went. So yeah, instead my opponent took with a bishop, which makes perfect sense because, well, I mean, in a way, rook takes c4 is really nice because you want to try to put your pieces on the c-file. But bishop takes c4 is very natural. You're attacking my rook. But it did help me to develop. I just play rook e1. And this bishop feels actually quite misplaced because black does not have a single move in the position. There's no b5. There's no d5. f5 is not happening anytime soon. So if you don't have any of these three moves, you have a pretty bad position, right? Let's continue. So my opponent played queen c7, knight a4, queen c6, and here I played knight b6. I wasn't entirely sure what the plan was of my opponent. Maybe she was trying to play for d5, but it was all quite slow and I was simply able to put my pieces into good squares. So rook ce8 was played, and here I started spending quite a lot of time. So you can see on the clocks that I had a huge time advantage. It helps a lot when you're prepared and you get your preparation on the board. So I could spend my time in this position. And yeah, I was very happy that I could do that, but I was still not sure what was better here. So there were two ideas I was thinking of here. First of all, I want to take that bishop because I'll have the bishop pair, and that light squared bishop seems to be pretty strong, much stronger than this dark squared bishop. However, if I take that bishop, I won't have a knight anymore. It's a pretty close position still. And this bishop is a really good defender. So I was struggling a lot to see what I could do after knight takes c4. It's still quite unclear. The other idea I had was to play b3. And the idea behind b3 is simply to play c4 and sort of put a Marazzi bind setup where bishop after bishop e6, c4, there is no way that my opponent can ever play b5, d5. Not now, not in 20 moves. But here my question was, okay, if I do this, or maybe I wait one more move and play queen d3 to defend the pawn on e4. But if I go for these kind of lines, what is next? Because I was seeing moves such as knight d7 or bishop d8, and I felt really uncomfortable knowing that my knight was going to get captured one way or the other, and I couldn't really see a breakthrough here. So that bothered me a lot. And after a very long thought, I decided to take on c4. So as you can see, I spent around 20 minutes on this move. Quite a lot of time, but I could afford it, and I thought it was pretty important to decide what I feel more comfortable with. And I went for this move after all because I thought, well, if I don't manage to get any sort of advantage, at least I have the pair of bishops, and that should come in handy if I manage to get a passed a pawn in some crazy future, you know? So queen takes c4 was played, b3, queen c6, and here I simply have a good position. So I'm happy, but I'm still unsure what is best to do, how to proceed. I see moves, but I also see moves from my opponent, and I don't want to weaken my pawns too much on the queen side. So the idea is, of course, to play c4, b4, and b5, but that doesn't happen so easily. Let me show you why. Knight d7 was played. Here, I simply don't know what to play, because if I play b4, which is apparently the best move in this position, then there will be rook c8, and I will have a backwards pawn, and it seems rather unpleasant. So I didn't really know what to do. Apparently this is completely fine. I can simply defend either with this rook or the other rook, and this is great for white, but really hard to go for this. And yeah, I didn't really want to be blocked with like queen c3 and so on, but apparently it's perfectly fine. Queen c3, bishop d2, and I guess we're happy with the trade. It makes sense because white has the pair of bishops, so they should be better automatically. It's simply that because of the because there's, you know, a lot of squares are being locked down, the position is closed. Because of that, it's really difficult to find a plan. Anyways, so I played move rook ed1. Simply sort of waiting move, trying to improve pieces. My rook was not doing anything on e1. Simply waiting to see what my opponent is planning to do here, because I don't really see a move for black here. So she played rook d8. Also sort of waiting move, I guess. I'm not sure, but there's definitely some idea behind it. Maybe trying up to free the rook, planning g6, f5, because initially after g6, there's bishop h6, and the rook would have been trapped. But okay, she played this move, and I played h3. Another waiting move. This was a solid waiting move. Always useful when you don't know what to do and you have such a close position. Just make some moves for your king. It can always come in handy. So knight c5 was played. Here I play queen c4. This is why I didn't rush with c4, because it weakens the square d4 a lot. And by not playing c4, I still get to put my queen there, which is pretty useful. Queen c8. This was a strange move to me, but yeah, I thought I don't really know how to punish it, so I played bishop g4, hoping that, you know, some knight e6 move would happen or something, because yeah, I thought it would be pretty nice for me. After knight e6, I was planning to play queen d5. And the beauty of this position for me is that after queen takes c2, I can simply take on b7. I can play rook c1, bishop takes e6. Everything is possible, and I'm simply winning in this position by a lot. So yeah, I was hoping for this to happen, sort of, which is why I played bishop g4. And yeah, I didn't really see anything better. Apparently queen d5 is a little bit more accurate. But yeah, a little bit difficult to make this move. It feels strange to put the queen on d5. Usually you want to have a knight there, right? But okay, I don't have a knight right now anymore. So yeah, I played bishop g4, queen c6. And she went back. She went back, and I was really surprised by this. Okay, I was not really surprised, but more like, yeah, I wasn't really happy about it because my pawn is under attack. I don't want to go back. And I knew that the move that I played, rook d5, I knew that something is wrong here. I didn't really like my position as much anymore, but I felt like I had to play this, and at least I'm threatening something. Bishop takes c5 is a threat, so that after d takes c5, the pawn on e5 is hanging. Well, not really as of now. Let me show you why. So let's say any random move is played. Takes, rook takes, is met with bishop f6 or even queen f6, and there are some problems happening along this diagonal. So I was aware that, okay, it's still very tricky. But okay, my opponent played knight e6. Actually, when I played with rook d5, I realized that maybe knight takes e4 is possible. And when I saw this, I was like, oh no, this is not great because my central pawn is pretty important. And I thought here f5. So after bishop takes f5, you simply have rook takes f5. I still hope that somehow my queen pawns would be much better, my queenside pawns. But yeah, I was not really happy about the fact that this move was even possible to get my pawn on e4, but I guess I'm still controlling the center a lot. The light squares are mine, so this should still be better for me, but during the game I was not really happy noticing that this was a possibility for my opponent. But okay, she played knight e6, bishop e2. She also doesn't have so much time left on the clock. Meanwhile, I'm also spending quite some time, as you can see. We are leveling the clock almost, but yeah, I was trying to play it safe. I thought, okay, I have the long-term advantage with the bishop pair, so I have to hold on to that. So yeah, I'm just simply defending the queen with my bishop. Rook c8, queen takes, rook takes, bishop c4. I thought I had to trade the queens there at least and I thought at least in the endgame I will be better. But still, it's really hard to get through all of those pawns over here. It's not easy. It's not easy. So bishop g5, she played this move and I was like, oh no. Once my dark squared bishop is gone, this knight is going to have a fun time on the dark squares. And I was not really happy about that. But then I realized bishop takes, knight takes, and I realized that I can play the move rook d3. So the idea behind this move, it looks super weird, right? So let me show you first why I did not defend the pawn on e4, which makes a lot of sense. My initial idea was actually to play rook d1. Let's put that out first. But after knight takes e4, this is a threat. Apparently this is still better for me. Okay, that's really funny. But yeah, I thought there's a fork hanging over there. I'm not able to take the pawn right away on d6. So I disregarded this idea as soon as I saw the fork. And yeah, that was really unfortunate. But apparently this is still completely fine for me. But okay, it's too close to a draw, so let's not go there. So what about just defending the pawn? Well, if I just defend the pawn, then I don't really know what's going to happen for me. Well, first of all, let's imagine that we want to involve the rook and put it on d1 next, so let's say f3. The reason why I didn't like this move is because knight e6, and the black knight will just go to f4, knight d4 can be played, knight c5, and it looks rather annoying. And it's really easy, I think, for black to hold here. My bishop seems clueless here. So I really dislike this position and I thought, all right, I have to come up with something more creative. Apparently the move f4 is much better, which is not the move that I played. But what is really interesting is that, so okay, of course, there's no capture here because the rook will capture the knight. So what about knight takes e4? So apparently this is completely not winning, but white is just much better here. It's a +1. Rook d7 will be played, and yeah, a lot of threats on the 7th rank. The other rook is about to be involved in the game, and yeah, a lot of problems for black, but okay. Behind the board, I did not see this at all, and I thought, when I saw this, I was like, this is insane. So this is too much. So I played the move rook d3. And the reason why I played this move is because I realized that after knight takes e4, which is not what was played, but let me quickly show you why knight takes e4 is not something I am afraid of. I will play bishop d5. And after this, yeah, I'm winning material simply. I did see knight c5, so sort of intermediate move. I would take the rook, my opponent would have taken the rook, and I would simply capture that pawn on b7. And once that pawn is off the board, there is another weakness in position. This is still a weakness, and this should be easily winning as my bishop is simply much better than the knight on d3. Knight c5 would have been played, and the bishop goes somewhere safe. Bishop c6, bishop d5 or f3, somewhere safe, and this endgame should be much better for me. So I was confident in my chances here, but my opponent played instead of knight takes e4, she went back, which makes perfect sense. But yeah, I was of course happy with that, and I played rook d1. Rook d8 was played, bishop d5, and here rook c5 was played. And yeah, as you can see, based on the clocks, we were both almost in time trouble. My opponent was especially in time trouble. And yeah, lots of crazy things happen. But yeah, here is where my opponent started to crumble as her position is simply falling apart. So I took on e6, pawn takes, rook takes d6, and I'm simply infiltrating in my opponent's position. Rook f8 was played in case of rook takes d6, which makes sense in a way. Rook takes c2, and I'm simply going to win this endgame by giving a check here, check, and then rook takes b7. And this is completely winning. I can soon pick up the pawn on a6, and these pawns are just really bad. They're not helping black at all. To go a few moves back, by the way, in case you may wonder, why did my opponent not take the pawn on c2 right away? Because rook c5 looks like a move that was not of much help. After rook takes c2, I thought that after bishop takes, pawn takes, I can still capture this pawn. Maybe this would have been slightly better to play for my opponent compared to what happened in the game, but this should still be winning for me. But okay, it will take much more effort. And yeah, if black tries to attack the pawn one more time, I can play b4, and after rook c4, there's rook b6 in any case. But what about rook b5? I'm actually wondering myself. So apparently this is completely winning. Oh yeah, you just take both pawns. You just take both pawns, and yeah, you have 2 pawns on the king side. That should be winning. But okay, it would have taken much more effort for sure. So instead, rook c5, takes, we took on d6, and my opponent went for rook f8, rook to d2, making sure that my opponent cannot get to the 2nd rank, because once the rooks are either on the 2nd or 7th rank, things start to get really dicey. So that's why I didn't want to allow any sort of infiltration on the 2nd rank by my opponent. So that's why rook d2, very solid move. Rook takes a5, rook takes e6. I was fine losing that pawn on a5 because I knew that my position is simply much better. This pawn is a huge weakness. Black is simply tied down to that pawn, and I am eyeing to get on that 7th rank myself. So rook c5, she went back, rook e7, and now I'm just simply on the 7th rank. She's trying to defend it, but now all the pawns are losing, and here I play rook d5, not allowing any sort of check. And this is where she resigned. So I won my very first game. Really nice, smooth game. I wish I didn't spend so much time in the middle game. And I wish I understood the position a bit better. But at least we have a nice game, a nice win. And I'm super happy about it. Our team won 4-0 in our first match. So that is amazing. But yeah, it's only the first round. Anything can happen in the next 8 rounds. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy my journey in the European Team Chess Championship. Make sure to check out my Twitch channel for daily streams where you can follow my games along with my community, and I will try to make recaps of the games every single day. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next game.